There is a particular kind of violation that happens when someone steals your idea. It is different from other kinds of theft. When someone takes your money, they take something external. When someone steals your idea, your original thought, your creative vision, the thing that came from inside your mind, and your experience and your unique way of seeing the world, they take something that felt like a part of you, and then they present it as their own. They receive the praise, the credit, the opportunities, the rewards. They stand in the spotlight that was meant to be yours, wearing your idea like a costume, and they smile. And you stand there watching, knowing what happened, and feeling utterly powerless to do anything about it. This is one of the most infuriating experiences a creative, ambitious, or innovative person can have. And it is far more common than most people talk about. Because the people who steal ideas are usually smart enough to do it in ways that are difficult to prove. They borrow incrementally. They reframe. They add just enough of their own language to create plausible deniability. They steal from people who are newer, less powerful, less connected, people who will not be believed if they speak up, or who will pay too high a price for trying. Today, we are going to talk about this, about the specific anatomy of idea theft, about what it does to the person it happens to, and about what the universe does when it witnesses someone building their success on someone else's stolen vision. This is the story of a man named Marcus, and the colleague who took everything he built. Marcus was a designer, not just technically skilled, genuinely creative. The kind of person who sees connections between things that other people do not see, who can look at a problem and find an angle that no one else has found. He had been working at a mid-sized agency for 4 years, consistently producing work that clients loved and that quietly elevated the agency's reputation. He had an idea, a big one, a concept for a campaign that was unlike anything the agency had done before, a multi-platform approach that integrated storytelling, data, and community engagement in a way that was genuinely new. He had been developing it for months. He had sketches, notes, research, a full presentation deck. He was ready to pitch it internally. He made one mistake. He trusted the wrong person with it first. His colleague's name was Trevor. Trevor was charming, well-connected, and had been at the agency longer than Marcus. He was the kind of person who always seemed to be in the right room at the right time. Marcus had considered him a friend, or at least a friendly colleague. When he showed Trevor the concept, seeking feedback before the formal pitch, Trevor had been enthusiastic, encouraging. He had asked a lot of questions. Smart questions, Marcus had thought. He had seemed genuinely interested. 3 weeks later, Trevor presented the concept to the agency's senior partners. With modifications, enough modifications to claim it as his own evolution of a direction the team had been exploring. Without mentioning Marcus, without acknowledging where the core ideas had come from, the partners loved it. They gave Trevor the lead on the campaign. They praised his innovative thinking. They talked about it as a turning point for the agency's direction. Marcus found out through a colleague who had been in the meeting. He sat with the information for a long time before he could even process it. The disbelief, the anger, the sick, sinking feeling of watching something that had come from inside him being claimed by someone else. He went to his manager. He showed the original documents, the sketches, the notes, the dated files that proved the timeline. His manager listened, nodded, said it was a difficult situation, said that ideas were hard to own, said that Trevor had developed the concept significantly, said that Marcus should be proud his thinking had influenced the direction. He was not proud. He was furious. And he was also, in that moment, very clear about something. This was not a place that valued him. This was a place that would continue to take from him as long as he stayed. He began looking for other opportunities. Quietly, professionally, without burning bridges. He updated his portfolio. He reached out to contacts. He started having conversations. And while he was doing that, he watched what happened with the campaign Trevor had stolen. Here is the thing about stealing someone else's idea. You get the concept, but you do not get the understanding behind it. You do not get the months of thinking that led to it. You do not get the intuitive grasp of why each element works, how the pieces connect, what the concept can and cannot do. You get the surface. And when the execution requires going deeper than the surface, when the client asks questions, when the campaign needs to evolve, when problems arise that require the original creative intelligence to solve, the person who stole the idea is exposed. Trevor could not answer the questions, not with any real depth. He deflected, he delegated, he brought in other people to fill the gaps in his understanding. The campaign launched, but it launched at a fraction of the potential that Marcus's original vision had contained. The clients were satisfied, but not wowed. The agency did not get the breakthrough moment they had expected. And the people who had been in that original meeting with Trevor, the ones who had watched his enthusiastic presentation, began to notice over time that Trevor's subsequent ideas were never quite as strong. That the innovation seemed to have been a one-time thing. That when they pushed him to go deeper, he could not. Meanwhile, Marcus had left. He had joined a smaller agency that was hungry for exactly the kind of thinking he brought. He had been given creative freedom, proper credit, and the kind of environment where ideas were protected rather than poached. He had flourished. He had also, in his new role, been asked to present his approach to a major client, a client who happened to know people at his old agency. A client who, in the course of that presentation, had recognized the DNA of the campaign Trevor had presented. Not because they had seen Trevor's version, but because Marcus's version was so much more fully realized, so much deeper, so much more clearly the work of someone who truly understood it, that the contrast was illuminating. Conversations happened. Connections were made. The truth, in the way that truth tends to do, found its way to the surface. Trevor's reputation did not collapse overnight. These things rarely do, but it eroded. The trust of the partners who had championed him eroded as they began to understand what had actually happened. The relationships he had built on the strength of stolen credit began to thin as the credit was quietly reassigned. He stayed at the agency for another 2 years, but he never again had the moment he had had with Marcus's idea. Because he had never had another idea like it. Because it had never been his. There is something the universe understands about creative work that the people who steal it do not. An idea is not just a concept. It is an expression of a person's mind, their experience, their way of seeing. You can steal the words, but you cannot steal the intelligence that generated them. You can steal the sketch, but you cannot steal the creative instinct that produced it. You can steal the presentation, but you cannot steal the depth of understanding that makes the work truly excellent. When you steal an idea, you get a copy. The original stays with the person who created it. And the original always produces more. This is why the people who steal ideas ultimately lose. Not just because karma catches up with them, though it does, but because they have fundamentally misunderstood what they were taking. They thought they were taking the most valuable thing. They were actually leaving it behind. If your idea has been stolen, if someone has taken your creative work, your concept, your vision, and presented it as their own, there are things you need to know. First, Document everything. Dates, files, emails, sketches, notes. Not for revenge, but for clarity and protection. The record matters. Second, speak up when it is safe to do so. Not in anger, not dramatically, but clearly and professionally. State what happened. Let the people who need to know. You do not have to be silent. Third, keep creating. This is the most important thing. The person who stole your idea is counting on you to stop. To be so demoralized by what happened that you do not produce anything else. Do not give them that. The best response to having your idea stolen is to generate 10 more ideas. To prove, through the sheer volume and quality of your creative output, that what was taken was not the last of what you have. Because here is the truth. If someone stole your idea, it means your idea was worth stealing. It means you are producing things that other people recognize as valuable. That is not a sign of weakness. That is a sign of genuine creative power. Protect it better next time. Trust more carefully. But do not stop creating. The universe sees what was taken from you, and it is already working on returning it with interest. How to generate and publish Instagram posts for Ganakankati, Manas.